All right, welcome to another installment of the Mood Room. We're doing our conspiracy episode today. I got a few guests in the studio / my living room today. I'm going to ask them to say hi real quick. We got back there, Hedderme is back here. Say hi, Hedderme.
I'm henceforth known as Thoth.
Okay, I don't know what the hell that was. Next to me is,
Nazar. I'm Nazar.
and then there's, you're up.
Dondre.
And our recurring guest on the conspiracy show, Nick, is here. Say hi.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so before the show, we just had a not huge, but we had a little discussion on a little bit of the flat Earth stuff. This is not going to be the show that we break it down. We're just going to do a little bit of discussion and talk about it. So this is kind of just like more like a Q&A kind of situation, but we're just some guys talking right now. We're not doing the full on flat Earth, get with the program or, get run over episode today. So you mentioned something about Pluto and the Challenger fucking people being alive. So go back to the Pluto thing, because that's where I was like, what? Pluto? What are you talking about?
Well, before we started this up, we were just going through doing almost a shootout of questions, and what were we? NASA came up and the CGI stuff on a video we were watching, and the gentleman had mentioned the CGI and the cloud formations, and I mean, if you really look into the images that they've put out there, whether it's Earth and the blue marble and the pictures from 72 on up to just a couple of years ago, I mean, it's totally CGI'd. It's pretty obvious. The way they do cloud patterns, people have spotted repeating patterns, which is just cut and paste. There's been other instances where they say people have spotted on supposed images of Pluto on the lower corner. You can ironically see the outline roughly in the the surface of the planet of Pluto the dog, the Mickey Mouse's dog from Disney.
Jesus Christ.
There's another instance where cloud patterns spell out the word sex on one of the Earth pictures. So just more mockery to add to the list.
Let me ask you guys a question, and this is something that you guys can, and all you guys can jump in on. But why do you think people are so eager to just follow what they've been taught and not think outside of that? Because whenever you bring up something like flat Earth or something like that, you almost become ostracized. Yeah. So it's like, you're told you're told one thing.
Yeah.
Well, you're told one thing, right? And then it's like, so then you get told something else. But you stay with the one thing and actually want to, attack people almost. Even though you're getting told something else, like, why wouldn't you just take it all in and learn, maybe learn something new? Why do you think people are like that? Is it impossible for people to just think outside of what they've been taught?
I think it's like a subconscious fear.
Well,
fear in what sense?
people have this bandwagon mentality where if everyone's doing or thinking a certain way, they want to everyone just do that, and they tend to shun people who think a different way.
Oh, so you're saying fear in the sense of if I speak out, I'll look like a crazy person?
Or
Is that what you mean?
And some people might, like you said, the fear thing. Some people might do question the Earth being flat or round. They might, like you said, fear oh, my friends are gonna think I'm stupid or think I'm a fucking idiot or think I'm crazy or just some nut job.
Well, I mean, in their defense, this subject is really it has such far-reaching ramifications for everything that if you were to go down, we like to use the rabbit hole. When you start going down, and if you want to even think that this might be true, it's then what? Why is this like this? Why is the Earth flat? Are we in a dome? Who put it there? It's it's everything.
It makes you question everything.
So you get a little bit of a fear of not wanting to know that the shit is not real, because it's that's too much for people.
Look at the Truman Show. When he found out he was in an enclosed system, it consumed him in the movie. That's all he cared about.
It's interesting because a lot of times, and I mentioned,
what did it.
That's all Jim Carrey, right?
Yeah, the one where the camera fell from the sky and he found out they were watching him.
So they talked about, if you're in a cage like that, you don't want to know what's beyond the cage and who put the cage there. It's the same type of stuff. So
it'd be the first thing you do. I mean, how could you think anything else at that point?
So is it suggested that the Earth, if it is flat, is it's under a dome? Is that what do they?
Well, whether you want to call it a dome, the firmament that's described in the Bible, the Van Allen belt of radiation that NASA likes to call it, nobody knows for sure. I mean, you look up, you really can't see it. But there's been stuff that's been done that actually proves there is some type of dome or barrier. In a few years after they founded NASA, I think it was 1960 or 61, the U.S. and the Soviet Union set aside all nuclear testing. They had nuclear test bans, okay, at that time, so they couldn't test nukes. They set those aside, okay, and you could look this up. And they set aside the ban on the nukes, and they went ahead for 3 or 4 years straight, they say, with megaton nukes, and they only used supposedly kilotons, I think, or the other way around in Japan. So the strongest ones, even stronger than what they have bombed Japan with. For 3 years, 4 years, they fired nukes into the sky, straight up, off of our planet in all directions, in order to literally try and blow the dome apart, to map it, to see what it was made of, and to find out its boundaries. You never are taught this in school, but thanks again to the internet, you can look up. It was called Operation, and interestingly enough, Fishbowl. Operation Fishbowl. It's all fact. It's all.
So I have a question. So you're saying this dome is like a solid? So it's like this right here?
Nobody knows if it's literally. I mean.
It could be an energy thing.
I picture it, when I picture it, it's like an invisible energy field.
Okay.
We don't, what he's saying is we don't know, though.
Yeah,
so it's like...
You don't know. I mean, they sent nukes up, and the nukes literally just, you know what I mean? At some point, it was like they were hitting something. There's a couple videos on YouTube where amateur people that are into rockets have built their own, that they've sent them up with cameras, and they say at some point it's almost as like it's hitting something and then just stopping, or hitting something and then going back down.
Those videos are on YouTube?
Yeah.
Would a homemade rocket really be able to go that high, though?
There's supposedly videos where they show, I don't know if it was homemade or done in like a
when we say
college
homemade,
you know what I mean?
I think it's like just something that's not privately owned. That doesn't mean it doesn't have the technology and the funds to be able to.
It was probably like, I think it was even like an MIT project or something like that, something legit.
Oh, if it's like okay.
Yeah.
You need access to like some
heavy duty shit.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. You can't just.
I don't know nothing about
like
rocketry, but
So
nothing like that.
Do you think that we'll call them the elites or whatever, right? Well, do you think that they are involved with this dome, or do you think they're just don't know about it, what it is either, and
they're more than likely involved with it?
Oh, absolutely.
In what sense, though, do you think? And this is obviously all speculation. We don't fucking know what the truth is.
This was, if you look up the Admiral Byrd guy, Admiral Richard Byrd, the greatest living explorer in the history of mankind.
I remember, that's the guy that went
this
to
guy's
the edge,
like,
right?
They call him like the real life Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I remember
You know,
that
he's
guy,
been to the North Pole, the South Pole twice. By 40, he was a Navy Admiral, they say.
He was in one of the videos we watched.
Yeah, he's the guy that they sent after the Nazis. They supposedly said the Nazis fled in U-boats to Antarctica after the war, when Germany collapsed. They said a lot of them took off, that, you know, I'm sure you've heard Hitler hasn't died, that he went down south to Argentina, lived out his life. There's been proof of that. I mean, people have testified. You know, maids that have changed his bed sheets, stuff like that. People had pictures of him. I mean, it's not too logical that he would just off himself in a bunker, and they even did DNA testing that proved otherwise. But aside from that, after World War II, they supposedly sent this Byrd guy with a fleet to the ends of the earth to chase the Nazis or whatever. He did 2 missions. The one was called Operation Deep Freeze, okay? Because they wanted him to literally go to the ends of the earth, okay? Literally go to where the ice wall ends, okay? If you start any point where we are in the world, no matter where you live, and you go take a compass and you go due south, whether you live in China, New York, this, that, start and you go south, you will eventually hit an ice wall. Okay, that's what our southern hemisphere is. It's a giant ring. They say it's an ice wall hundreds of feet high. That's what holds in the oceans. So there ain't no going over the edge like all the jokers say. You know what I mean? It's the first thing they bring up, going over the edge, water going over the edge of a flat earth. It's held in by these walls that they say are hundreds of feet high. And it's funny because even I don't watch Game of Thrones, but don't they put out something similar to that now on Game of Thrones? Isn't there an ice wall that encompasses, their world? Well, it's just funny how they throw the clues out there little by little. You know what I mean? Mixing lies with the truth.
Yeah, well, it's so much to take in if you really start paying attention to this shit, and then when you start putting the pieces together, it just
Oh.
gets completely overwhelming. So obviously this has to be a worldwide fucking effort in order to.
Without a doubt, Antarctica's patrolled around the perimeter by all nations.
Isn't that why they signed, what was that treaty
The
called?
Antarctica Treaty.
Yeah.
What happened was, let me get back on Bird. What happened was with Operation Deep Freeze, and the second one was called Operation High Jump, because they literally wanted him to high jump over the wall, over the dome, and see what else was out there. Okay, I mean, the names of the operations say it all to you right there. Deep freeze and high jump. So he gets back, he goes on national TV, and you can watch his TV appearance on YouTube.
I saw that, yeah.
And it's in black and white,
Yeah, I
and
saw that.
right in back of the TV host, okay, it's the Gleason's map from 1902, which is the real layout of our world. They even had the flat Earth map in back of him. And he's going on telling you he went to the ends of the Earth. There was more land as far as the eyes could see. It was rich in uranium, oil, all types of minerals. Okay? He gets back and tells them this. Now they've discovered where the edge is. Where, they're the wall, the edge, whatever you want to call it. Same year, NASA is formed, and they find out about and declare it the Van Allen Belt. Okay? And then a couple years later, they start the testing, throwing the nukes up. So within 2 years, he gets back. Every nation signs off after Byrd gets back on the Antarctica Treaty. It bans all private exploration, settlement, everything in Antarctica. They wanted to leave it untouched or whatever. But the fact is, they didn't want you to see that there is no continent Antarctica. That's where our world ends, is literally a wall that surrounds our planet. That's Antarctica. There is no 11,000 miles. It's why anybody that's ever tried to sail to Antarctica, as soon as they hit it, they tried to find an inlet because they thought they were going to sail around Antarctica. Okay, in the past, they charted 30-something thousand miles because they were literally going around the whole Earth. They were literally following the wall. They could never find an inlet. So they say it's about 70,000 miles, you know what I mean? And that's why there's no flights, hardly. 90% of flights, 80% of flights, whatever it is, are all in the northern hemisphere. Okay? There's hardly very, very few compared to how many. You look at where it charts the planes and where they're flying, 90% are in the northern hemisphere. They don't want you. Any route that supposedly has to fly over Antarctica, like we went over last time, these routes don't exist. They take you every which way but there. They explain that flying over Antarctica, it's too cold and it would mess up, instrumentation on the plane and stuff to do with the weather, yada yada. But we went to the moon, remember? And we had all this equipment from NASA that can withstand extreme cold, extreme heat. So flying over Antarctica really high up should not really be a problem when you think about it. But it's the fact that there's nothing there to fly over. And they go every which way but there is when they're flying. So they make that once they found out and that treaty was in place, you could not do nothing. To this day, people have tried to take, like Norwegians and Swedes have tried to, with their own ships and icebreakers, have tried to go to the ends of the earth, and by gunpoint they were turned around, arrested, thrown in prison.
Now, are you saying that you said they're patrolled?
The whole perimeter is patrolled. You're not allowed to privately fly over it. You're not allowed to go up to, I guess, the end, the wall, the actual continent, whatever you want to. I mean, there's research facilities there, like scientists and shit like that are set up. And you can even, for enough money, I heard it costs quite a bit, you can even book tours that go to the South Pole. But they're not taking you nowhere near that. They're taking you on what they tell you is the South Pole, an iceberg or whatever, a piece of land where they got the barber pole set up, you pet a fucking penguin, take a selfie, and you're done. They don't let you get beyond that, and that's literally what it is. So people, of course you can go there. You can go there and fly there. You can go on guided tours. There's no private exploration. They don't want you to see the end. I mean, the biggest problem this planet has, and what they want to do with getting people to under a 5% population, we're so overcrowded. You tell people that there's land as far as the eye can see, past, and we live on a flat plane, the world's going to go fucking nuts. Everybody's going to want to go out there. You know what? All this shit now is solved. Look at all these resources. All our issues on this planet are no longer a problem.
Well, some of that stuff is kind of apparent in the sense that we have technologies now that can get rid of some of the problems when it comes to your fuels and all that kind of stuff. But we don't pursue it because it's more about making money and all that kind of stuff. So it's like if you truly wanted to advance people and technology and all that kind of stuff, those things should be at the forefront of experimentation of what we want, right? And so there's a lot of countries out there that are actually doing some of this stuff, but of course the all-powerful United States is not they want to stick with oil and all these this sort of things. And so it's like
it's the reason
they're more concerned about the job market. I also have another question. So basically you're saying past the ice wall barrier, it's more land? Or more.
This guy said there was more land as far as he could see. Now, what he didn't say was, well, how far did you go there, or why couldn't you go there? I mean, were you stopped at a barrier? You know what I mean? I assume all that stuff was said to somebody, and he was another one, Bird, that, earlier in his life, in his 50s, he was another one, within a year after all this shit, another one died mysteriously, mysterious causes, no autopsy, shit like that. Same like with Patton, when I was telling you, suffered a car accident and he dies a week later after recovering from a broken neck.
Patton? Who's Patton?
George Patton from World War II.
Okay.
The general.
The last show we did, we were talking about World War II and Hitler and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you listen to it, he talks about Patton's role and everything, and
he thought we were fighting with the wrong people. Patton thought you should get with Germany and squash the Russians, because communism will eventually spread like it did and take over, the European countries like it pretty much did.
So this, oh my God! So they're saying that Bird got over the ice wall.
Not really all.
I mean, at the time, the spread of it at the time.
Yeah.
So he got over the wall, but then he couldn't go. Right? They're saying that Bird got over the wall and he got past.
He literally he went to the end. So if that means he was standing on the wall and seeing other land out there and was literally at the edge, that's the way I interpreted it. You know what I mean? Because obviously high jump means clearing that wall. So I assume he either stood on the bank, couldn't proceed further, something stopped him.
He was on Operation High Jump.
He led it. He led it with like Navy, a whole armada. They went under, I don't know what the official thing for the mission was, but I know that they had thought that Nazis were setting up, there's a whole thing too on, Nazi bases in Antarctica that they set up and with UFO technology and all that shit. So they want you to think, part of the reason he went down there was for that, which it could have been, you know what I mean? Because the time frame is right. But really, they wanted him to chart to see where it had ended. And so now they know, we're surrounded by perimeter, we're enclosed in. They find out NASA's formed because we got to explain, you know what I mean? And then what happened with the space race, Kennedy wanted to literally sells you this thing that we're going to go to the moon. Because they have to show you by the 30s and with Picard and stuff, people at the turn of the century were starting to wake up to this shit. That's why NASA literally had to show you the globe to put it back into your head. You know what I mean? Because it was they hadn't shown you any concrete
All right,
proof.
one of the things that people talk about when we talk about flat Earth stuff is you talk about the live feeds from NASA. Because, right now I can look up a live feed of them supposed
Right, but it's not live real-time feed. There's always a delay. So they're showing you a
Just
pic.
like in wrestling.
Right. It's a 10-minute, delay, and obviously what they're showing you is, clearly CGI. When they train for the ISS, that's all underwater pools and stuff like that. NASA don't hide that. They tell you that's how they train the astronauts, because the conditions underwater are similar, they say, as to those in space. But where they show you the astronaut on the outside of the ISS, doing with the wrenches and soldering stuff or whatever the hell they're doing, repairing it or fixing it, building it, okay? That's all filmed underwater. The background is done with CGI and they're showing you. There's videos where that people have caught actual air bubbles coming from the helmet.
Oh my God.
In space. Air bubbles.
Now you were
showing
talking
off the
earlier.
helmet.
You were talking earlier about if you were on a plane, you would be, on one side you would see,
Right.
and then the other side you'd
Well,
see.
By their logic. Same with their logic. If the Earth is spinning in one direction, right, 1,000 miles an hour, and you can't fly even that fast, or whatever, a helicopter, whatever, how would you ever get to your destination? Why is it that helicopters just don't hover until their destination rolls up, and then they just land?
That's a good fucking point.
Right?
You
I
can
mean, they tell you it's going at 1,000
good
miles an
point.
hour at the equator. Another thing with the military, you look this up and you ask anybody that was in the military or something, there's something called the Coriolis effect, okay? And they tell you at the equator it's spinning faster than the rest of the planet at the equator on the tilt and everything because of the Earth's axis. So what they have to figure when firing off cannons and even sniper fire and stuff like that is they have to factor in for the spin and the Earth's curve. And the Army and everybody, they have tables and equations and measurements that you are supposed to do to actually factor it in. This is called the Coriolis effect. I can show you hundreds of videos where all types of military and non-military people say they fire these cannons, these guns. These charts are not even used. They are not even used at all. At all.
So it's more bullshit.
More bullshit.
They try to reinforce that stuff in movies too, just like
I know.
Right, they give you the math. They add 18 million
Well,
zeros to it. They tell you, because I'm telling you
Super-
this, it's true. Somebody did it.
What was it?
Just
Had
believe.
Will Smith in it.
Hancock?
No, that he was Deadshot.
Deadshot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Suicide Squad?
Yeah, Suicide Squad. At the end of Suicide Squad.
I didn't see it. I actually haven't seen Suicide
At the
Squad.
end of Suicide Squad, they had Will Smith just say, "Oh, you need to account for the curvature
Oh
of the Earth too."
yeah.
For
I'm telling you, they're
shoot
throwing it in there. And that movie just came out. I mean, not just came out,
Yeah,
but
it
it's
just-
fairly
yeah.
new.
You also talked about how why we haven't had a space expedition.
In why? I mean, in 19 it was so easy back then.
Right, yeah. You
Why
would think
not
the
now?
technology now would be far more advanced
Right.
than what's been.
Right.
But you're also saying technology also is the problem because we can now debunk the stuff.
We
Easier.
have technology, man. We have great technology in terms of like stuff they could do. We've discussed this with healthcare and vehicles and stuff like that. But what you got to get your mind out of is the whole space mentality. Just like satellites and your dish networks and all that, it's all land-based communications. They're not going off any satellites in space. There's no satellites. Satellites don't exist. You know, they're not getting it. It's why when you look at coming here, I looked at every dish network on the block. You know where they're pointed? At a 45-degree angle at the nearest tower. Every single one. Now, if they're in space, why wouldn't they be pointed straight up? 90 degrees, clearest reception. No trees, no nothing. Every satellite should be pointed straight up. Right? If we're getting it from space. Why not? Why is it during a meteor shower nobody ever loses their satellite TV or anything? You know, because it's nonsense. They say a rock this big can punch a hole and damage severely the ISS space station. Yet there's tons of space rocks and debris flying around, yet one hasn't penetrated a wall or brought down a satellite crashing to Earth. There's people who designed them for NASA
Wait,
that
so
did interviews and
Meteor
they said,
showers come that close to Earth?
well, I mean, asteroids, whatever you want to call them, whatever they tell you are out there, meteor showers, stuff like that. If there's satellites all over our planet, wouldn't stuff from space, whether it's space rocks, stuff hurtling from space, wouldn't one of these 14 trillion satellites be hit sometime?
Is it really that number? For you,
No, I mean, it's some ridiculous
But it's
number.
up like it's a big number like that.
They have a thing where you can, if you Google satellites in space, the first image you get is
Oh, I saw
the
all the
CGI
satellites
thing with all the
everywhere.
little specks
Yeah, I
around
saw
it.
that, yeah.
But why is it in the night sky we can't see them? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's true.
There's people claim they see them, but they don't, you know, how do you know you're seeing a flashing light? You can barely tell what a plane is, but yet people are going to tell me that they see a satellite with their own eyes, and a satellite's between the size of a bus and a car? But yet you could see that clearly, but a plane is barely a blip that I could see, you know what I mean? So
I feel like I wouldn't be able to see it.
I feel like I wouldn't be able to see
Yeah.
it too if they
Yeah.
exist.
Because the
That's
planes are
fine.
closer, first of all, and sometimes you're just sitting there wondering,
Right.
"Oh, what is that?"
It's probably a plane.
Right. Just like the sun, they tell you, is 93 million miles away. I don't know. I look up and I get blinded by it instantly. We feel its heat and get sunburned. Does it really feel like it's 93 million
Well,
miles
tell us
away?
about the sun then.
You know?
How does the sun
Well,
play
yeah,
into
wait,
all
what is
this?
the sun then?
The sun.
And the layout of the planets and all that.
Well,
I mean,
they-
I didn't kind of. It's fine. Go ahead.
They tell you. Hold on.
You also see it too in the like live feeds they do when they put GoPros and stuff up there. It doesn't look that far away when it gets up there.
No, and it looks about the same size as the moon. But yet they'll have you believe that it is this giant fucking star and it's so far away and so big, and they add infinite zeros to the number, you know what I mean? That's how far away it is. And it's not. They say that roughly it's, something like 3,000 miles away from us. That's what,
But that's outside the dome.
That's inside of our dome. The sun, the moon, and the stars, just like at night when you go outside and you see the stars revolving around you, you're not moving, they're moving. We're the center of the universe, okay? The Polaris, the North Star, never moves from wherever you are. It's always a fixed position. Everything else, all the cosmic bodies, the stars, the heavenly bodies, they revolve around us. Yet NASA wants you to believe that due to an explosion of nothingness which created us, and I mean that's just beside the point, but we're going around the sun. And if you look at the numbers, they tell you the tilt of the Earth is at 66.6 degrees, and they tell you that we're going around the sun at 66,600 miles an hour.
Interesting numbers.
666. Okay? And now the sun and the moon look just about the same, just about equal. They tell you the moon, though, is only 242,000 miles away. Yet I look up, I can see them both. They claim they landed on the moon. You look up on a clear day, you can see clouds almost through the moon, like it's not even a 3D object. We only see one face of the moon always, like it's a spotlight always. That's never changed. But yet they want you to believe that it's a round planet and that everything else they look up and see are round planets. These P900 Nikon cameras, you can zoom in, they say, I haven't done it, but you can zoom in, they say, supposedly to Jupiter. But when people do it, they don't see a sphere, a 3D sphere. They see that it's round. It's a round light, it's a round illumination, something like that. Gases and stuff can produce what looks like the ring around Saturn. But they call the planets wandering stars. All these images you see of the colors of Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune, these are all renderings. Just like you see when they tell you the Milky Way galaxy is all these light years away from us, and you know what I mean? And we're constantly moving and it's constantly moving. So how did we get the pictures? They have to be CGI renderings. How is anything they're showing you real? It's just not, because we literally can't do it. We can't go there. You know what I mean? We could sit here and we could debate and like the history behind it and stuff like that. But the stuff with the cosmos, that's why they almost put the infinite zeros and the infinite question marks behind it, because you almost have to put your trust into what these people tell you. Because we really don't know. Do your eyes and your senses tell you that you're really spinning around at 1,000 miles an hour? I get the bullshit when I tell people this. They're like, oh, you're crazy. It's so big you wouldn't feel it. We don't feel it, man, because of gravity and all that. We don't feel it. You know what I mean? Just like you don't feel it. You don't notice it. But your own senses tell you. You look at a playground, at a merry-go-round, a child for 12 miles an hour has to hang on for dear life. So, but yet we're spinning at 1,000, and the planet we're on spinning at 1,000 is shooting around the sun like this.
Fucking car, 90 in a car. You
right.
know you're going fucking 90.
Exactly.
So if the planet was doing anywhere near that sort of speed, there would be something.
Of course, they want to separate you from your God-given senses and have you believe what their science tells you. The stuff they tell you is, a lot of it's theories. We haven't seen any solid proof. In this day and age with the technology, bottom line, show me a picture of the Earth from space. Aside of all the theories in Antarctica and everything, there's no reason why the first thing that ISS Hubble satellite, there's no reason why the first thing it didn't do was a 180 pan of our Earth. There's no reason why the first astronaut on the moon didn't do a 180 pan of our Earth. It should be the first thing they do. Instead, they're looking for ways to doctor and show you a picture and bullshit their way along. But people have caught up, because now you have the technology to pick all that stuff apart. See, back then, what the people saw on the moon landing was a picture of a picture of a picture. Okay? NASA had the reporters at wherever they had them. They showed them a picture of the picture they got from the moon. Then that picture was broadcast into your TV. So you're seeing, think of what great quality that was on black and white TV. Picture of a picture of a picture. But yet now when they analyze it, they see there's 3 different shadows on the moon coming from all directions, which means outside light sources. How the astronauts' boots left imprints, but yet on the lunar module, the legs left no impressions whatsoever. They want you to think. They want you to think that piece of shit that looks like curtain rods and foil duct tape went to the moon. They want you to believe that. I mean, crossing radiation and gunning it through that. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But people, it's just so ingrained in us that people accept it, man. But this is just so great to see that people actually question it and are open to hear it. Because like you were saying, the first thing you get is the fucking ludicrousness of it. People think you're just nuts. You know what I mean?
Right,
Straight
this
up.
leads me into the Degrassi stuff. You sent me a video about Degrassi, your favorite scientist guy, whatever there. So he's part of the brainwashing. So just give me some, like we talked about him before, but you said you saw something. Go ahead.
Neil deGrasse Tyson? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. The guy, DeGrasse. Is that how you say it? DeGrasse?
Neil deGrasse Tyson, right?
Yeah, that's how you say his name.
DeGrasse.
He's their celebrity scientist. You know what I mean?
Now,
There's not many of
them. What
them.
are his supposed credentials? Do you know?
He's actually smart, and he was taken under the wing of Carl Sagan, the writer and what is he, an astronomer, I believe. Carl Sagan, who's another one of these big influential sci-fi people. Who has, if you notice, a lot of these people who are sci-fi authors, entertainment field, NASA, they're really, really internet. You know what I mean? Just like I was saying with Arthur C. Clarke, he writes about satellites in a science fiction book, and then they make them real. I mean, the thing I sent you, Neil deGrasse Tyson was explaining how he no longer feels he has to debunk anything. Because he's constantly bombarded now with the flat Earth stuff.
I bet he is.
You know what I mean? And he feels he doesn't have to debunk it. Almost, isn't the impression you got like, hey, if you're stupid enough to believe that, that's fine. But he said that his job as an educator is to mold and teach the young ones who don't have these ideas, in other words. In other words, look, he knows he can't debunk it to you, is basically what he's saying. So instead, he's going to indoctrinate the children with all this nonsense.
Well, actually, he did come on, I think it was either the Colbert Report or, what was the other one? The Daily Show, where he literally did come on the show. And
was that the one where he dropped the mic?
Yeah, and he dropped the mic.
Yeah, I mean, it's all for show. You know what I mean? You get to, they ask him what's gravity.
He wasn't truly challenged on that show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He didn't have
all those questions. When you see them debunked, he knows them ahead of time.
Right, it's all scripted.
He diverts the question. He's giving you stuff. When you really look at what he's saying and break it down, because I'm not a scientist. You know what I mean? I don't understand the science talk. So when people ask me, like I was telling you, they want me to break down the degree the planet is
and
facing.
And that's their way of reinforcing the idea of what they want to believe.
Right.
So
because
when they can get you
internet
to not break down the science for them, it makes what you're saying not legitimate.
Exactly.
But is not necessarily the case.
No, because they can't debunk it at a for lack of a better word, at a primal level. He can't even debunk it because our eyes and the horizon line and field of vision tell you one thing, and going by your own curvature math, they've proved him time and time again what they say is false. Just like when he says he brought up an interesting topic. There's a place in Dubai, the tallest building in Dubai. It's one of the tallest buildings in the world. Neil Tyson brought this up. That during Ramadan, when they do the feasting for a month, that the people fasting. When they're all the way at the top, the people who live at the top of the thing, because of the curvature of the earth, their fasting hours are different. Okay? And the reason they explain this is because of the curvature of the earth, and the fasting breaks during sunset. So what he's saying is the people who live on the lower levels of this get to start breaking fast earlier. You understand? And as the people who live higher, okay, now the sun hasn't set for them. So he's trying to say because of that and where they live up top, it's different because of the curvature. When simply it's not that. You can stand in the lobby when the sun is setting, perfectly flat horizon, see the sunset. You can get on the elevator in the same building, go to the top, and see the sun re-enter your field of vision. Now, is the sun setting twice or is there curvature? No.
Isn't it just because you have a higher field of vision?
That's right. You have a higher perspective, a higher field of vision, a higher perspective.
Okay.
So it's coming back, just like when the boat's going over the horizon. Countless videos, again, you can watch. Boats, when you're looking at them and they're far, far away, they're not going over any curve. If you take out a camera and zoom in, you will zoom right back in on that boat. It's not half going over the horizon. It's perfectly on a flat sea level. That's why it's called sea level, not sea curve. It's perfectly level. Water always finds its level.
Wouldn't that be pretty easy to prove if you have like
People
a
do
boat
it, though.
behind a boat and you have the camera set so that the camera is going to see the boat dip down, but if it just stays straight, then you're done.
Countless videos on it. Yet
You're
they're not.
that's easy.
There are countless videos on it. And this is, just like I said with the Statue of Liberty, going by their curvature. When people say they see it 50, 60 miles away by 8 inches per mile square that I should see of curvature, I shouldn't be seeing it, is what they're telling you, 60 miles away. In other words, it should be 2,200 feet below sea level, that far away. But how are you still seeing it? Okay, I bring this up to countless people. I had one guy...
And then they pretty much just say, "Oh, the world's too big."
You're right. They bring up the scope of it, and that you don't notice. Nikki, the world is so big. They tell me you don't notice the curve because it's so big. This is not my math that I made up. It's their math. These are their equations that the people threw back in their face and said, "Well, why can I see it? This is your math that you told us. Your supposed curvature that you told us." It's not because the world is so big. It's why it's only possible on a flat plane for your field of vision and the perspective. Okay, the horizon is totally flat, whether you're on land, sea, or air. The horizon always rises to eye level, always. It would not be possible, that would not be the case if we were on a globe. It would not be the case. When you look out the plane window and that horizon rises flat to eye level, if we were on a globe, your head would have to be pinned to the window looking like this so you can see over the supposed curve.
So how does gravity play into this?
Well, gravity's just pretty much, a theory. It's another theory to reinforce the ball and how trillions of tons of water stick to a rock in space, going fast. Yet you wet a tennis ball, soak a tennis ball, and throw it through the air. What's the first thing that happens? The water spins off that ball. It does not stay on there. People bring up the stuff where, well, you can take a bucket, fill it halfway with water, swing it over your head, and the water will stay. The water will stay because it took the level and the shape of the container. And I'm sure there's some type of physics involved, and it stays level.
Yeah, the container's holding it
right,
in there.
And then
the
the force of it going it around
is causing it to stay inside of there. But there's nothing holding on to supposedly the water on the planet.
Right. It's mass and buoyancy.
What I was really getting at was, how does gravity work within a flat Earth planet?
Mass and buoyancy is how they explain it. Mass and buoyancy. In other words, something is either heavier or lighter than the environment it's in or falling through. Okay? So it's the reason why you take a beach ball or a soccer ball when you're out in the ocean and you try as hard as you can to hold it underwater. What happens? That ball shoots right back up out of the water. Why? Because the air is lighter than the ball forces it to come back up. Why is it that gravity can hold trillions of tons of water on a spinning rock, but yet a butterfly and a bird have no effect? It has no effect on a butterfly or a bird.
So that's interesting because the pressure would...
Right.
That's interesting.
Right.
If it's going to pull the water and keep it together, why isn't it pulling everything down like that?
Exactly.
In a dome, we're being held down by what?
It's not. It's just density. It's how heavy you are. I'm sitting here because my fat ass is heavy and it's staying onto the ground and onto this chair. It's mass. I'm heavier than the air right now around me, you know?
So is the dome falling?
The dome is in place by supposedly whatever field or whatever it is there. I mean, water always finds its level, and whatever shape you put it in, it'll always find its level in that. Water doesn't curve and stick around something. It's just impossible. But with relativity and gravity and all these made-up terms and theories and stuff that we take as commonplace, Neil deGrasse Tyson, what's gravity? Gravity, bitch. drops the mic. You know what I mean? The mic is falling because the mic is heavier than the air.
Right.
So
And
how
it
does
drops.
the dome stay in place?
Nobody really knows.
The
I
dome
mean,
is something that is
Think of it
you
like
don't
a
know anything about
invisible
it.
energy.
Like it could be plastic. It could be energy.
Right,
We
it
don't
could
know
be
what
solid.
that is. We can't. That question can't be answered right now.
right.
All right.
And that's why they were shooting up nukes to try to get information on that.
Right.
According to what he's telling me, I don't.
They wanted to map it out with the nukes. They wanted to literally blow it up. And it's hinted at in popular culture all the time. The Simpsons, countless flat earth clues. If you go back and you look at flat earth, I don't know how you would search it on YouTube, but The Simpsons, there's just one where Homer, one of them, Bart is at bat in a baseball game in a stadium. He hits a home run. The announcer goes, "It's deep, it's deep. It looks like it's going to hit. Oh, it smashes the dome." It hits a glass dome in The Simpsons, cracks it, and water pours into the stadium. And that is straight out of the Bible, where it said God separated the waters above from the waters below. There's theory, okay? It's not that I believe this, and there's theory out there that the reason our sky is blue is because the firmament is clear, and a lot of people think it's some type of, for lack of a better word, water is what surrounds us in space. Is literally the waters from above from the waters below. There's deep sea divers who have dived to the deepest trenches of the earth and have found pools, little pools of their own independent pools of like little lakes at the bottom of the deepest. And they said the water was so saline, it was like a gel, like a different substance almost. That's just nuts. That's just nuts.
That's crazy.
I mean, when you start going into how deep it gets to and what we're really on, that's the stuff we really don't know. I mean, they tell you the Earth has the inner core, the outer core, inner mantle, outer mantle. Yet the deepest we've ever gone is 7 miles down, Russians drilled. It doesn't get, their drilling equipment all stopped after 7 miles. Deepest part of the ocean is only 8 miles. Russians tried to drill as far, I forget the name of the drilling expedition or the team, but you can look that up too. They tried drilling as far as they could into the earth, and all the equipment stopped or broke or whatever after they couldn't get past 7 miles.
It gets too hot and the equipment stops working.
Right, something was causing it to stop.
No, it didn't get too hot. That wasn't it. I think the rock surface was just too hard.
Right, like they said, they tried all types of different diamond tips and this, that. Everything was breaking, not working, malfunctioning. They can only literally get to a certain point, but yet they want you to believe through ground penetrating radar and all this. Oh, we know for sure that the magma core is what causes, you know what I mean, everything else and this and that, and we've labeled it the inner core, when in reality, you don't know really that that's there. You really don't. Have we sent a camera on a drill down there? No. Was I the one? Did I see his radar, ground penetrating radar? Just like when there's interviews with people who have worked on NASA satellites, and the interviewer says, has you or any of your friends ever been to a launch of one of these?
To what?
And the guy said,
Satellite.
now that you say it, no. They never invite us to. Wouldn't that be like a ceremony, right? Like, hey, this is my little baby. I created this little satellite. You know what I mean? Let's go off to the launch to have a champagne
The
crack
thing about
over it.
this sort of stuff is there's only so much fucking coincidence. There's just only so much.
Right.
And at the point where you just want to stay in this bubble of untruth, then, you can stay there, but you shouldn't ridicule people that want to just look beyond what's presented to them.
No, because, I mean, it's all based on facts. Like I was saying with the math, people who believe in flat Earth didn't make that up. That's globe people making that math.
You know what's else funny? What's funny too? People I consider intelligent people, right? People that are much smarter than I am. They get so offended at this stuff because it bursts their intelligence bubble.
Yes, and I'm gonna.
So they can't handle it. So they have to try to, throw out their fancy equations and their big words and all that kind of stuff. But this stuff is pretty simple and black and white. You don't got to do all that. But because it's gonna tear down the education system.
It's going to tear down the fabric of everything we know. It would be the biggest thing to ever happen to anything. It would make you, when that comes out, and it will come out, there's no way around it. At the speed at which it's growing, they said it went from 10,000 hits 1 month to now it's 30 million are researching in a month on Google and stuff like that, flat earth terms and stuff like that. Now the number one thing, you know how Google finishes your sentences when you start typing in words and suggestions?
Yeah.
If go ahead and you type in the Earth, even if you've never
It's
searched,
flat,
it's
yeah.
flat.
Yeah, I
Comes
did
up
that
first.
before, actually.
Yep, comes up first.
Oh, thank God.
Just like Hitler's the most researched man on the internet. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yep.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I knew, you know what I mean? I knew amongst books and stuff like that, like in college, they used to always check out his books and read, but he's the most searched man on the internet.
Interesting.
Times Man of the Year, 1938.
I remember that. Like,
You know what I mean?
what?
Yeah. So that's just a little side note for.
Well, you don't have to be like a
listeners.
good person to be the man of the year. You just have to be the most like prolific.
Yes, that's true. But
right,
that
it's for what he did.
reinforces.
It's
you
for
know,
what he
it's
did.
like because you create this image of him being this tyrant, killer, devil, whatever guy. But then there's this other side of him that's worthy of the cover of Time magazine.
Right.
So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like another one of those things where it's like there's another clue that ties in everything else, but you're gonna ignore it.
They tell you all the negative shit, you know what I mean? They don't focus on what he did for the country and the people.
Yeah,
and
well, the people
you know.
in
One
wars
thing
read
I wanted-
history books.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted you to do real quick, and you were, I guess I could bring him in sometime, but you listened to our last show, and we were talking about the Hitler stuff, and then you said there were a couple of things that he missed or got misconstrued or whatever, or was it really more so just he regurgitated what he was taught, and he tried to defend with stuff that may not necessarily be true, but just because you're taught it,
Right.
you know, it doesn't make it true. You
Right.
know, like he just said, the people
Exactly.
that. So do you remember some of the points that he was making that you were like, nah, you missed some stuff,
I
buddy?
didn't hear him. I know he was talking about why their economy collapsed and, you know, taking the wheelbarrow because of inflation to buy a loaf of bread and stuff like that. But I mean,
Venezuela.
after, you know, the whole thing with World War One and at the end of that and with Germany, I don't know, he failed to mention that, you know, Britain promised Palestine to Israel. Israel got the U.S. in the war. Jewish people and
Slow
the
down,
Zionists.
hold on. You said Israel got the United States. Say that.
The Zionist Jews from Germany at the time. Okay, they, like I was telling on the show, when World War One broke out, the U.S. was not involved for the first couple of years.
Right.
When
Okay,
it was
when you said
inevitable
got, you
that
mean
Germany
got the
won the
support,
war,
okay.
they went to Britain and they said, "Don't sign the treaty. You know, promise the Jewish people Palestine, and we'll promise you the U.S. as an ally, and you'll win that fucking war." And that's exactly what happened because they controlled the newspapers and the media. The views changed. U.S. eventually, with the Lusitania, got into the war, you know, and the rest, and it continued on to World War II. But there was a big ban on and a boycott of German, you know, people, their goods, their services, everything, and that was a big reason why the economy collapsed.
Which, you know, when the people are
They
in
were
power,
they were top of the line in engineering and goods. Germany exported a lot, and they imported most of their food, 2/3 of their food. So when you ban and put
you
a
put
ban on that,
sanction on food, you're
that's like
fucked,
saying
they're
from
fucked.
Japan in the 70s or from Taiwan, don't buy their electronics. They're done. They're done. Their economy would have collapsed. You know what I mean?
Something else people can't stomach. You know,
So
you
just
saying
a
something
little
positive
things,
about Hitler?
but it's right, and that's, you know, the reason he tended to focus. And I could see that that's exactly when he said, you know, I went to school for this or whatever. And that's I can see that.
You know, one of my friends actually in high school, he wrote a paper on the positive things Hitler did. That was pretty funny.
And I bet he got reprimanded by the teacher.
I don't remember what he said to the teacher. I think the teacher was pretty chill. I think he laughed, that's all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because people do that these days. You know what I mean? It would be, you know, it would be like a hate thing, a racist thing.
I
Would be.
respect him for it. It was interesting.
What did you want to say, Jeremy?
Alright, getting back to the fear aspect of it, the whole flat Earth thing is basically like saying like this: if that's not true, I've wasted my whole life in school with lies.
And paid for
Right.
And yeah, people pay for
Right.
this stuff too.
And you're shown that globe. I mean, it's the first thing you're taught.
I mean, one
2
of the
plus 2
classes-
equals 4. Here's the globe.
One of the college classes you could take is earth science. I mean, there you go, right there. And then you
Right,
can take
and
all-
that's real. You know, I got nothing against science, and I don't know, John. People, it seems. Do you notice this trend too? It seems people our age, like you were saying, they get so insulted. Some of these people who are these self-proclaimed scholars and self-proclaimed amateur
Well,
scientists
let's bring up
and
the
stuff.
thing, that recent video that I posted, and people were getting all butthurt about it. Remember they did the little satire about the safe spaces, and they had a little box there, and the guy walks in and ignore the box. Remember that whole thing?
Right.
And then
Yeah.
when we got into the comments, people were
Right.
getting, I'm like, the information is just showing you what the
it's
extreme,
slightly exaggerated for humor.
Right, but then people are acting like this is absolutely ridiculous and it's insulting, blah, 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 blah. I'm like,
and what's
you don't see the evidence of this stuff happening? It's very evident.
I mean, there it is right
There's like some, almost like a cognitive dissonance situation going on with that because people don't want to face the truth.
And the one guy's a so-called educator, didn't he say, or he was at one point? So that's kind of, it's kind of scary. I mean, look, I understand.
And you saw how he was like when he responded, he was like all like condescending and belittling and all that kind of stuff. I know how people like to troll, and I'm not mad at him for it. It's just that when you are unwilling to face the possibility of this sort of thing happening, you allow that very thing to happen because now you're ignoring it until it's too late.
And I face the same thing with bringing up the flat Earth, but on a different thing, not really the safe space thing, but it almost offends a lot of friends that I have. And look, I love science fiction movies. I'm a fucking geek. I love comics. I love all that stuff. We grew up, John, in the heyday of all that stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing that stuff we get to see now on the movies and all that.
I have friends who literally think that, they believe this stuff so hard. They worship at the church of Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson, and these people are 100% right. I'm noticing a trend that a lot of these people who are our age that are getting insulted when you criticize this so-called science and criticize these people are some of the biggest science fiction fans and people who have bought into this whole space thing and that they're going to one day be on the Enterprise with Kirk, flying the cosmos. They want that to happen so bad that they won't listen to anything you have to say. You understand? Mm-hmm. And it's really where it comes from. Now, some of them have become smart and stuff like that, and you get good jobs because of your love of like sci-fi and what you grew up on. You work in the field, you become a scientist. But a lot of these, because of your love of science fiction, you know what I mean? William Shatner, in an interview, they asked him, what is the difference between science and science fiction? You know what his answer was? Nothing. Nothing. There is no difference, he said.
That's interesting.
There's no difference. I mean, to accept the fact that aliens and that whole thing with space, and they don't want to accept that the lie is this big. People, I always get asked, how could so many people keep it a secret in this day and age? Are you kidding me? Do you see how people are in public? How could they keep it a secret? Very easily. It was back years ago when people were starting to wake up that they couldn't keep it a secret and why they had to do all this shit and show you the globe and the pictures and constantly keep reinforcing it. You know what I mean? What's the first thing you say to the teacher? Are the people from Australia upside down on that globe? Or are they going to fall off? Or some comment about the water? You know what I mean? But it's the first thing. It's because they teach that and ingrain it in your head before you can make your own opinions, your own judgments, before you can research it yourself. So now, by the time you're graduated or 12th grade, forget it. Forget it. You're fully indoctrinated.
Yeah, because when you're a child, you're basically effectively a blank slate.
Yeah, a sponge.
It's what they tell you.
Right.
Like religion. When you take religion, you're in church. Say you go to church on every Sunday, 7 days a week.
I agree.
You're at school learning more stuff than that.
You're right.
You're not learning that, so you're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna go this. This makes sense. Hey, frog does this. Oh, I can cut it open. This is the heart. This is this. It all makes sense.
And that part of it, there's nothing wrong with that's real science. Real science is being able to reproduce or to do something or replicate it in a lab or a lab setting. You know what I mean? A lot of this stuff they tell you, the Milky Way galaxy and the stuff they show you in Aliens, and now it's almost like a fact that they want you to believe that the very essence of what we are is stardust, like these ancient alien shows. 30, 40 years from now, if people totally fall back asleep and it's not exposed, they're going to believe you're children of aliens. Who knows how far it's going to go? You know what I mean? These shows like Ancient Aliens and stuff like that, it's why evolution is taught as fact in schools. But yet it's a theory.
Yes.
There's never been. If evolution is true, there should be the missing link amongst interspecies. Yet all the ones they've showed you, it's fact that they're false. There ain't no half caveman, half ape man, whatever they called it, the one. That's all proved to be hoaxes. They piece together skeletons, piece of human bones, piece of ape bones, try to tell you this is your missing ancestor. See, this proves evolution. And not to get into that whole thing, because that opens all the doors as to why they're hiding it from you and this and that. That's like the reason for a whole nother show.
All right, so then, we just did an hour. You gave us a lot of good information. Did you guys have any more questions or comments you wanted to make before we end this show? I think we can get into the evolution stuff next time. That's a pretty cool topic.
Continue on to NASA, the whole charade.
Yeah, I know, right?
We just branch off and we go over a bunch of stuff, so whatever. I'm glad we got in the show today.
True, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I think that if, for a lot of people, they might just throw this out as speculation. If you're not able to actually explain the science behind how, like, the world would work if it's a flat Earth, that might contribute to why you can't convince certain people.
Right, and this is what I told John. See, I agree with you 100%, and it's hard. I remember I told you, I was like, when you said George and them, we should do one day like a round table where we kind of, it wouldn't even be like that bad of an idea to actually like set up like a small thing with like a die-cast airplane or something to actually show you like what direction and the movement and the, the sun, the moon, the stars, like that. Because really, when you see the system of it, it's not like hard to understand like how it works and the way the map is laid out and why it's the UN map. It's because that's the true layout of our world. Yet Obama will give you speeches saying we don't have time for members of the Flat Earth Society. Yet he's telling you this on a podium that has the Flat Earth map plastered to it. You know what I mean? Throwing it right back in your face. Now, Obama didn't come up with that. He's not smart enough to come up with that off the cuff. Somebody wrote that into his speech, and he said it 2-3 times in the last couple of years. Obama. Same with the NASA stuff when he goes on and does the NASA. NASA has a budget of $52 million a day when their money's broken down for the year a day. $52 million one day is their budget.
Good Lord.
Okay, you can make some good movies with a $52 million a day budget. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think that's going to end the show. If any more questions or comments or anything.
Is that you?
We are on the show. Collards. I'm kidding. All right, thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, dislike. I like to say
thumbs up and views, folks, please. Help
share it,
Absolutely.
and just keep an open mind. We always say that at the end of every conspiracy show. Just keep an open mind. Bye.
Bye.
Hasta la vista.